Okay, so anyways, tonight I'm going to be talking about finding and living out your purpose. So tonight I'm going to break it up in 3 different sections. But before I get into that, I wanted to tell you guys what purpose means. So Google says that purpose is the reason something exists. So it's the reason you and I are on this earth. Okay, so our first section is finding out what your purpose is. I think that's so important because you can't live out your purpose if you don't know what your purpose really is. So the number one way to find out what your purpose is to look at your gifts. So one of my biggest influencers, Sadie Robertson, whenever she was younger, you could just tell that she was a really good speaker and she was also a really good writer. So now whenever you look at her now, whenever she's grown up, she travels the world and speaks, and she's written so many best-selling novels. So you can look at her gifts then, and then you can see how her gifts have played into her life now. So God gives us our gifts so that we can accomplish our purpose. So let's say we have a soldier, and you don't just throw a soldier out into a battlefield and just hope he survives, all right? Obviously, you give him like a gun, weapons, stuff that he can use to survive, and not only just to survive, but to accomplish his purpose, and it's to defeat the enemy. So God does that same thing in our life. He gives us our certain gift mix that we can go and accomplish our purpose. T.D. Jakes says, if you can't figure out your purpose, figure out your passion, because your passion will lead you into your purpose. So I want you guys to remember that quote. And then also, your purpose will write your story. So I'm going to tell you guys one more quote, and it says, my dad, he always says this a lot. He says, never go to work a day in your life. Go towards your dream. So with all 3 of those quotes, I just wanted to touch on something really quick. So let's imagine like we have 2 men. Okay, so on this side, let's say he goes through elementary school, goes through middle school, and he has certain gifts, but he never really works on them. So anyways, he goes to high school, goes to college, and he ends up being a banker. He goes throughout his life, gets married, has kids. Pretty much he dies a little bit later. So that's his life. So then we go over to this guy. He went to the same middle school, the same elementary school as him. He goes to middle school, and he realizes he has these certain gifts. So what does he do? He starts working towards those gifts, and he realizes his purpose. So whenever he goes to college, he works more and more on his gifts. And by the time he's 25, he's already a millionaire. So he can do whatever he wants in his life, and he has the freedom to do that. So then later on, he goes throughout life and just has a dream as a life. So he dies too. So let's look at these 2 lives. So would you rather have a life over here just average, which is fine if you want to be average, but I know none of us want to be average. Or you can live this kind of life where you can go out and do whatever you want because you realize the purpose inside of you. Okay, so I'm going to say 2 words, and I want you guys to raise your hand and just tell me the first thing you think whenever I say that. So job and work. What is the first thing you think of? Okay, I'm going to give you the microphone. What do you think, Jesse? Coming back.
No.
Okay, so here we go.
Tiring.
That is the exact answer I wanted, so thank y'all. Jesse, do you want to say something?
Job from the Bible.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so pretty much the general answer is something that you don't like. So if you say work around most adults, what is their first reaction? Thank y'all. Y'all are tracking with me. Thank y'all. Okay, so pretty much people have a bad reaction to that because raise your hand if you've heard an adult say, tomorrow I have work, or I have 1 more day of work, then I'm off for vacation. Yeah, people say that all the time. But like I was saying about the quote that my dad says, never go to work a day in your life. Go towards your dream. So kind of like the 2 guys. This guy never went to work. He was going towards his dream. But this guy wasn't going towards his dream. He was going to what society told him he should do. Okay, so now we're going to move into our next section, and it is about growing your gifts. So I play volleyball, and we usually have games on Tuesdays and Fridays. So let's say I have a game on Friday, and I don't show up to any of the practices. Probably by Friday, if I just rolled up there and was ready to play, my skill level would be very bad. So let's say I didn't practice all week, then I didn't practice all month, and then I didn't practice all year. I would be absolutely terrible, okay? So let's say you do that in your life. You never work on your gifts. So I want you guys to remember that. So now we're going to talk about an example. So let's say we have 2 seeds. The first seed over here, we get a little container and we put it in, we duct tape it, and we put it in a shoebox, and the shoebox goes in the very back of a closet, and we leave it there for a month. Okay, this seed over here, we put it in fertile soil, we water it every single day, and we put it in sunlight. So we leave that there for a month. Then we bring the two together. What's most likely going to happen? This seed's going to grow, obviously. So what I'm saying is you have to give yourself the opportunities and the resources to grow. Because if you just leave your gifts there, they're going to be like this seed over here. But you want your seed to be over here so that you can be a plant. Okay, so where I'm going with this is you have to give yourself the right resources to grow. So I'm going to give you guys 3 things that I want you to remember. So number 1 is to be careful what you listen to. Whenever you're at school or if you're at home and whenever you put in your AirPods or your headphones, what are you letting into your ears? I don't know about y'all, but like if I listen to a song like twice, it's like in my head for the week. When I'm talking to somebody, it's always in the back of my head. So if you listen to songs that are just trash, as my dad would say, then trash is going to be in your mind pretty much all week. Well, for me, but I'm sure you guys think about the same thing. Okay, so second is watch who you let speak into your life. This doesn't have to be like influencers. It can even be like your best friend, like people that you talk to every single day at school. So I want you guys to remember that because we're going to come back to that. And the third thing is watch what you watch. So whenever your family leaves and you're home alone and you go sit on the couch and you turn on the TV and you start playing Netflix or Disney Plus or Hulu, what are you opening your ear and your eye gates to? Because that is so important. Because it's so important who you are at home by yourself when no one's around, as it's just as important as when you're around other people. So if you're ever making a decision and you don't know if it's right or wrong, just ask yourself, is this building me up or is this tearing me down? Okay, so I made a quick list for you guys, and it's the unhealthy side and what you could do instead. Okay, so the first thing is listening to unhealthy music with explicit lyrics and trash content. Instead, you could listen to worship music. Like I listen to Bethel, Roar Youth Worship, obviously, Elevation, Passion, stuff like that. Or if I'm not listening to worship, I listen to stuff like For King and Country. That's like my favorite band. So anyways, back to the not side. If you have toxic and negative people in your life, instead, you could have encouraging people. So I want to talk about this for a second because I think it's so important. So let's say you go to school and you sit down and you have like 10 minutes before your first class. So you start sitting down and you're talking to this person. And they're talking about how terrible their morning was, how terrible school's going to be. And pretty much when they talk for long enough, it's going to put you in a bad mood, right? So whenever you go to your first period and they're not there with you, you're probably going to be in a bad mood because of them. So then you become a negative person for someone else. And then they'll be in a bad mood. And pretty much it's just a chain effect. But if you went to school and you sat down with like a super encouraging person and then they put you in a good mood, then you're going to put other people in a good mood. Okay, thank you. Okay, so the next is books with like bad content. I don't know if you guys like to read, but I love to read. So if you read stuff that's like bad for you, or you could read the Bible and uplifting books. Okay, so the next one on the not side is influencers. I'm just going to give an example. I don't know if you guys like the same people as me, so just make up your own example. But for me, I would not let people like Cardi B influence me. Instead, I would listen to people like Sadie Robertson. Okay, so our flesh will always desire the not side because that's just how our flesh is made. But we have to let our spirit be so strong that it's always going to crave this side no matter what the flesh is craving, because we have to give ourselves the right resources for us to grow. So I heard this quote the other day and it was so good. So it says, if we want to fly, you have to give up everything that weighs you down. So it's kind of like on a plane. When you have too much luggage, they put it on the next flight. It's super annoying. It happens all the time. But they do that because the plane can't take off if it's too weighted down. So if you have anything on the not side, it's probably weighing you down and it's pulling you away from your purpose. And your purpose is ahead of you, so you have to let all that go so that you can fly. Okay, so I'm going to touch on one more thing before we move on to our next section. And it is about toxic friendships. Pretty sure you guys all know what that is, so I'm not going to go into too much depth about it. But one of the quotes is, don't fall apart because of the wrong person. So like I was saying earlier, if you hang around with someone that's just negative and toxic, they're going to try. They might be insecure of you. That's just one thing that normally happens. So they're going to slowly try to pull you apart so that you can't go to what you should be going to. So with that being said, we're going to move on to our last and my favorite section, and it is being confident in your purpose. So me and my sister, Judah, come stand up here with me. She's going to be really mad at me for this. Okay, so me and Judah may look alike, but we are absolutely nothing alike. I'm a better speaker, and she's a better singer, and safe to say she's not as good of a speaker as me, or not as good of a singer as her, but we're so unique in our own way, and we both have our sets of gift mix, and we have our own purpose. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so we're both unique in our own ways. We both have our own purpose, and each and every one of us in here all have our own purpose. I thought that was so cool, how God has wired each and every one of us so individually. Like, imagine how many people are on this world, and he created you. Like, that is so cool, and it just makes me confident just thinking about it. So one thing that God really told me to say is to, whenever you're confident in who he made you to be, you can go out and let out to the world. You can go out to them and share him, pretty much. So, but you have to be confident to do that. If you're insecure, you're going to pretty much be scared, and people are going to say, okay, well, I know that she's not actually confident in herself, because you can look at their fruit. That's what my dad always says. Whenever you're confident in yourself, you can go out and share it to the world. Okay, so I'm going to tell you a quick story, and it is about a man named Noah. So Noah was going about his life, and then God stopped him and was like, okay, Noah, you need to build a boat, and not just a boat, but an ark. And he was like, God, there's no large bodies of water anywhere near me. And he was like, I just need you to do it, because I'm about to flood the whole earth. And he was like, okay. So pretty much he goes and he starts building over here. And just like he thought, people were making fun of him. And he could have stopped, but he didn't. So anyways, he keeps on making his boat or whatever. Then, whenever he's done, the world floods. And it doesn't just rain. By the way, just so you guys know, in this part of time in history, it has never rained before. So people were like, what is coming out of the sky? You know, because that's just weird, right? So pretty much Noah is on this boat, and it starts to flood, and people are like, what's going on or whatever? And the whole world floods. And it's just not like a Texas flood, because we all know what that is. It is like a Texas flood on steroids that are on steroids, and floods the entire earth. So Noah and his family and all the animals are all fine on the boat, and everyone that doubted him drowned. Okay, so, but Noah, if you really think about it, while he was building his boat, one of his friends could have came up and started making fun of him, and he could have been like, well, they're my best friend. They probably know it's right for me, so he could have stopped. But if he did stop, he would have drowned too, and you and I would not be here. So thank God that Noah did not stop. Anyways, all that matters at the end of the day is what God says about you. So it's really hard now, especially as a teenager, because you really try to please people, right? Like last year, I was a baby freshman, and I always saw other people around me that were baby freshmen too, trying to please the seniors. So they wanted to be friends with them, and they wanted to be accepted by them. So they did anything they could to make sure that they liked them, right? But if you try to please one person, then you're not pleasing another person. And if you try to please that person, then you're not pleased by this person. And it's just a huge web. So why would it even matter to you to please one person that's not even going to be your life in 5 years? Why not try to please the only person that really matters? So Proverbs 4:25 says, set your gaze on the path before you. When you're fixed on your purpose, you can look straight ahead and ignore life's distractions. So whenever I think about that, I always think of bowling. So let's pretend that we're a bowling ball, and pretty much we get rolled down the lane. And while we're talking about this, I'm so good at bowling, but I would be terrible if the rails weren't up, because I always hit the side of the rails and go straight and get stripes. Like, I'm so good at bowling, but only if the rails are up. One time I went with my friends, and they didn't put the rails up, and I was like, okay, what's going on? Anyways, I hit the gutter every time. I had a score of 0. Anyways, so whenever we're like a bowling ball and we're rolling, if there's no rails, there's gutters around us, right? So if we start going this way, we're going to be like, oh, I'm going to fall, oh, I'm going to fall. And then if we go this way, we're like, oh, I'm going to fall, oh, I'm going to fall. So pretty much we're worried about falling here and there, right? But if we have the rails up, we don't have to worry about what's on this side or that side, because we're so fixed on hitting the pins ahead of us, right? Kind of back to what I was saying, that you need to have good people around you so that they can encourage you, because like my parents, like my best friends, like all my family, they're like my rails for me. Like if I start going this way, they're going to bounce me back by grounding me. And so if I go this way, they're going to bounce me back, so that I have no choice but to go forward. And that's just so important that you have people in your life like that. So in closing, I want to ask you guys a question. So raise your hand if you agree that our world is super crazy right now and you have at least one thing you want to change. There's a lot going on in our world right now, and there's definitely things that need to be changed, right? But you know what's going to change our generation? You are, and I am, and you are. But you know what? If we stay the same, nothing's going to change in this world. In fact, it's only going to get worse. So one time in quarantine, my mom and my sister thought it was a good idea to make a puzzle or build a puzzle. And I hate puzzles. Like, I've always hated them. So it was like a 1,000-piece puzzle. And I was like, oh, gosh. It took us like a week to do. So whenever me and Judah were little, we used to hide the last piece like behind under the carpet. So whenever we'd be like, oh, where's the last piece? The other person would be like, oh, I have it. And then they just like put it in. So I thought Judah was doing that. So we have like 3 pieces left. I put one down, my mom puts one down, and then we're like, okay, Judah, we know you hit it or whatever. And she's like, no, I didn't. She was like, I thought you hit it. And I was like, no, I didn't. So pretty much we've been working on this for a week, and there's a piece missing. And we're like freaking out because we've been working on this for like a week, and I'm already quarantine crazy, so this was just extra. So if you think about it like this, we're all a piece to the puzzle. And if we don't go after our purpose, that's going to be a piece missing, and we can't change the world without you. So if you ever feel like, does it really matter? Like, I'm so small compared to all the people. You do matter because you're a piece to the puzzle. And just like that 1,000-word puzzle, you're the last piece. I mean, you could be the middle piece and you don't even know just because you keep telling yourself that you're not worthy, but you are because you're the middle piece, and we all need you. So one more thing I wanted to say is whenever you are going after your purpose, just know that you're going to have to step out of your comfort zone. And I know comfort zones are like good and everything. They feel safe, kind of like whenever you wake up early in the morning for school and like you're in your bed, you're like, I don't want to get out. That's kind of like what a comfort zone is. But you just have to know that if you want to do anything, you're going to have to step out of your comfort zone because nothing grows there. So we're going to do a quick recap over everything. Okay, so number 1, purpose is the reason something exists. T.D. Jakes says, if you can figure out your purpose, if you can't figure out your purpose, figure out your passion, because your passion will lead you into your purpose. You have, just like I have to practice volleyball, you have to work on your gifts. And you are a piece of the puzzle, and you matter. Thank you guys so much.